Welcome everyone. We come together today to celebrate the life of Jackie Crowe, a much loved mother and wife, a friend, a colleague, a mentor and a role model, and a highly influential National Mental Health Commissioner. Most of you here today, I think, knew Jackie very well. Some perhaps not so well, particularly our staff from the Commission who joined recently, but I thank you all for taking the time today to come and pay your respects to her. I might just add that the service is also being live streamed, so we've got lots of people hopefully on the end of the whatever it is out there who are able to join us in remembering Jackie today. As you all know, Jackie's life was tragically cut short in October this year at the tender age of just 49 years. And it's way too soon for anyone, but particularly someone like Jackie who gave so much to those around her and who had still so much more to give. She had a beautiful farewell in Geelong, and that honoured her and her life and all that she'd done and she'd achieved. But today at this memorial, we want to particularly remember and celebrate her extraordinary contribution to the mental health sector in Australia and internationally. It's particularly special to have Gary and Cassie here today. Zach was unable to make it, but as we remember all that Jackie did to make mental health services better for those who need them and those who use them. And I know that you were particularly proud of the work that she did in the mental health sector, and particularly her leadership roles at the national level. Everyone who knew Jackie said she stood out in the mental health sector, was for her knowledge and her skill, for her ability to cut through and to get to the important issues, and for her courage in speaking up, for her warmth and her generosity to everyone, no matter who they were. And it was for those qualities that Jackie was appointed as an inaugural National Mental Health Commissioner back in 2012 when the Commission was established. And she had been reappointed in that role as a Commissioner for a further 2-year term from the 1st of August this year. Today we're going to hear from her colleagues and friends who are going to share their reflections of Jackie and her contribution to mental health and to mental health reform in Australia. And there'll also be the opportunity for anyone else here who may want to say a few words to share their thoughts and memories as well. So I think, if I can turn the page, Professor Alan Fells, the inaugural chair of the National Mental Health Commission, is going to kick us off with his reflections on Jackie. Thanks, Alan.
Peggy. Well, good afternoon. I'm very pleased that you are all here, and especially Gary and Cassie, to honour the memory of our dearly cherished colleague, Jackie. But before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people, the original custodians of this land, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. And I'd also, as Jackie would want, to pay my respects to people with lived experience of mental health issues, their families and supporters. The passing of our treasured friend and colleague Jackie Crowe touched the hearts and souls of people from the highest echelons of government to the many people on the ground who knew her as the inspirational person who represented completely the pure essence of what is our purpose at the Commission, to improve the lives of people who live with a mental illness. Jackie aimed for the sky, and she made an immense contribution to the current reforms being rolled out nationally, with the goal of putting in place one of the world's leading and most effective mental health systems. I remember the very first meeting that Jackie and I and others attended in 2012, and all the commissioners led by Jackie and Janet Ma and others, made a commitment to always have people at the heart of what we do. And in her role as a commissioner, Jackie ensured that this commitment was always central to our work. Jackie's been a core part of the Commission's family and has guided our journey from the very beginning. She was central to many key initiatives of the Commission, including supporting the development of the peer workforce, driving the reduction of seclusion and restraint practices, and greatly enhancing engagement and participation and effective care for people with lived experience, and especially taking account of carers and families. My own memories of Jackie are engulfed with warmth. She was a welcoming, kind, hard-working, fiercely intelligent and endearingly opinionated, and I appreciated her great ability to use humour to arouse discussions to achieve outcomes. We've attempted to immortalise some of Jackie's enduring phrases in today's memorial booklet. One she used with irony, acknowledging the hurdles we often must overcome, was, "Houston, we have a problem." And the other, to garner action, "And what are you going to do about that?" And even in my own struggling case with humour, she ended up by buying me as my Christmas present last year a book of dad jokes. So it's no surprise her extraordinarily good and endearing personality has resulted in numerous acknowledgements of her exceptional contribution to mental health reform over many years. They're a testament to her legacy. Her energy and dedication to ensuring the voice of people and families affected by mental health issues was part of decision-making at all levels. That has influenced us greatly at the Commission and indeed much more generally across the whole field of mental health policy and action. We will continue to champion Jackie's determination to encouraging greater understanding, compassion and respect for people affected by mental ill health and the families, friends and carers who journey with them. And just to remind you of how we thought of her, we did a word cloud. And if you look at the word cloud, all the words in it capture her character. Presence, incisive, dedicated, tenacious, best, enthusiasm, fearless, warning, respect, bubbly, strong, passion, wise, kind, generous, contributor, exceptional, friendly, passionate, and inspirational. So Jackie is and always will be remembered by me and by all of us as a unique and beautiful person with incredible drive. I remember her lovingly, and I know the impact of her work and life will be cherished by all who knew her and have a positive impact on the lives of people living with a mental illness and their carers for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I now invite David Butt, who's a former colleague and friend, to address us. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Peggy. And thanks everyone for the opportunity to share this with you, and my thanks to the Commission for putting this on, because I think it's very important that we do this. I'd like to begin like Alan and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting, the Gadigal people, and pay my respects to elders past and present, as well as to recognise and acknowledge the contribution made with people with a lived experience in mental health who are very fundamental to change across Australia. I first met Jackie in early 2014 when I was appointed CEO of the Commission at the time. The Commission was tasked with doing the national review of mental health programs and services, and we were in a cafe in Melbourne, and the thing that struck me immediately about Jackie was the drive, the persistency, the passion about doing meaningful change that would impact and improve the health and well-being of ultimately millions of people across Australia today and in the future. And that day she handed me a four-page document which she had written out about her expectations of the review and what would come out of it and what the recommendation should be. And in the months ahead, I quickly came to realise that Jackie was very clear about setting her expectations. And very powerful in doing it, so I think that was terrific. But it was a terrific set of 4 pages. It was something of a bit of a Bible for me. I would go back and check it occasionally as we were writing the review and say, well, have we covered everything that Jackie wanted covered? Because she was pretty spot on in terms of understanding what needed to change. I don't know how you measure the impact of an individual, one person on an area such as mental health and suicide prevention, but I think we could say that Jackie's impact was immense given the passion that she brought to it and the knowledge of it and the way she could operate at all sorts of levels across the sector, across levels of government and the likes. She always had time for everyone and that must have been a huge demand on her time because everyone wanted to talk to Jackie. They respected her opinions, they really appreciated the opportunity to raise issues with her, they knew she would listen, and she was very good at trying to talk to people about their needs, their wants, their problems, or referring issues onto me or onto others, whoever could help. But she was also very good at distilling out of that the systems things that needed to be approached, that needed to be dealt with, and I think that was a great contributor to the work that she brought to the Commission, that she had that on-the-ground experience and was well respected, and she could pick up issues and bring them back for us to look at how can we systematically impact on that so it doesn't keep on happening. She was very warm and compassionate, full of ideas, always looking to help, but she was also fun and very funny, and I must say I'll never forget the sort of girlish giggle that she used to give all the time about various issues, because she did have a good focus on humour and laughter and all the rest of it, albeit other times she did not. Through our work, we often shared a stage together. We were in workshops together. We did all sorts of things that where it was sort of a tandem thing where I would be talking about systems and she'd be talking about people and all those sort of things. And I think it was actually really worked really well, albeit she did have a tendency to laugh loudly as she told the crowd about how I'd missed certain slides because I had clicked forward without going through the slides, so she did quite enjoy that. But she was a really good speaker. I mean, very, very effective in what she did. She was very passionate and she was very much focused on big picture and change, but she was also very realistic about change and what needed to be done. So it's actually that practicality that I think was really important in what she brought in the messages that she gave. And I was very proud to be there with Jackie at the 2016 National Suicide Prevention Conference when she was awarded the National Life Award for Leadership in Suicide Prevention. I think it was really well deserved and a highly popular decision that was made. She was great with people. I do want to mention the staff, and as Peggy's saying, some of the newer ones won't remember Jackie, but throughout the years that others were there, having Jackie come to the office was a delight for everyone because she brought lots of joy, but she also brought lots of wisdom, and it was really good to bounce things off her. If we had a difficult issue where there were options, I would often say to the staff, look, ring Jackie and get a sounding from her on how this will go over. So I think that was really important. But she was also very effective at driving change at a national level, and I think this is pretty rare where you can translate from doing things at a local level, dealing with individuals and people, and then transition to that sort of systems and national approach. And she was highly courageous and she wasn't in awe of anyone. So, you know, prime ministers, whoever it might be, she was forever willing to face up to them and keep them accountable and to say why and why not and to push them. And I think the wonderful thing is that the way she did it and the knowledge that she brought and the passion that she brought was highly respected and highly appreciated, and she did get answers. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty rare attribute to have, to be able to do those two things at the grassroots level, at the coalface, with people who really need help, and also at that national level. So I think that was really important. As Alan said, we did the national review and government and the community listened. I think we got the directions pretty well right. Implementation, well, it started. It's not necessarily all right yet, but it started, and I think we have, impacted. Jackie, as Alan said, also impacted in a range of other areas such as seclusion and restraint in the peer workforce, and starting on the physical health of people with a mental illness, issues that she was very passionate about and very knowledgeable about, and she contributed to greatly. I'm sure Gary and the family were often found it difficult to keep track of what Jackie was up to because of the amount of things that she was working on and the pace that she was working at. Obviously absent a lot for the work she was doing for the Commission, but also lots of time on the phone, lots and lots of time on the phone. Actually, if Jackie rang you, you knew, well, I'm going to have to give up the next hour. She'd ring up and say, yeah, I just... Midnight phone, yeah, I'm sure that's true. Yeah, she'd ring up and say, I just have a quick question, and yeah, an hour later, you would have been over, meandering all across the Australian mental health system, but it was usually very interesting, very insightful, and really, a terrific, actually, way of getting good knowledge about what was happening in mental health, so she was really a great source for that. Impact, as I say, the reality is that changes have occurred from the work that Jackie did and with the Commission. There's a long way to go, but I think the reality is we have got changes happening in terms of regional approaches, seclusion rates down, stepped care, all the sort of things that are happening across the country, digital approaches, which Jackie was very passionate about. We've got performance indicators in the 5th National Mental Health Plan, which reflect a lot of the indicators that were developed by the Commission going back some years ago, albeit some of them you can't measure yet. So there are things happening, but I mean, there is a long way to go, and I think it's up to all of us who continue on that we continue to pursue those directions and sort of keep that passion and that fire burning that Jackie displayed so much for us, because I know Jackie would want us to do that. So I'm very humble and delighted to have worked with Jackie, to have learnt so much from her and to be such a good friend with Jackie. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And now Leanne Craze, again, a very dear friend and colleague to Jackie, is going to share her thoughts and reflections.
Thank you, Peggy. Today we celebrate the life of a person whose capacity to contribute we stand in awe of and are very grateful for. Jackie Crowe touched so many lives and left so many people the better for having known her. Because we knew Jackie in different contexts, I think it's difficult for us to understand and appreciate the enormity of her contribution across so many areas. Gary, Zach and Cass knew Jackie as a life partner, business partner, mum and best friend. Jim knew Jackie as an owner. Jim's the dog. Yeah. Sorry, Gary, people were looking a bit... Yeah. Others knew Jackie as a close friend, others as both a friend and a colleague. Today, there's people here from the National Mental Health Commission, fellow commissioners, Peggy and staff, people here from the Ministry of Health in New South Wales and the New South Wales Inquiry into Restrictive Practices, from the New South Wales Mental Health Commission, from Inaugural, from committees Jackie sat on, from a project you were involved with her, from government departments, from a scheme Jackie was up to, or from a dream Jackie had, or from a shopping expedition. Wherever we have come from, we can all point to a word or an act of kindness that changed something in us, that changed something in our lives. Sometimes it was how we viewed ourselves, sometimes it was how we viewed other people, and importantly, it was often what we believed to be possible. And so to help us bridge the knowledge gap between all of the different contexts that we come from, I thought I'd have a go at describing a life in the day of Jackie Crowe, and I will apologise ahead of time because I don't think I can do it justice, but here we go. So each new day, of course, began the day before. It started with phone calls, with conversations, with brainstorming, preparing thoughts, preparing arguments, Googling, asking Jim his opinion. The morning started early, Jim's advice again, checking in with Gary, the best baker and running the best bakery in the world, about how their plans and dreams were progressing, checking in with Cass and Zach, and out the door, into a plane, of course chatting up the person sitting next to her, picking their brains, finding out what data they knew, or importantly, what data they had access to, exchanging their ideas, getting their business cards, into a taxi, gleaning all she could from the taxi driver, checking out her or his latest technological toys, inviting them to discuss their life and where they had come from, their views about mental health. And often, I'd imagine, it ended with Jackie giving free counselling and free advice, and probably also giving her mobile or email address. So then she might have been from the taxi to the New South Wales Restrictive Practices Inquiry, meeting with Dr. Wright and her colleagues. I'd imagine Jackie would have taken the lead. What do we need to find out today? Who's going to ask what questions of whom? What must we see? Sitting in a hearing, texting a colleague for advice about the mysteries of New South Wales, or even more mysteriously, mental health legislation in New South Wales. It might have been a meeting of the National Mental Health Commission, keeping the Commission on track and committed to hearing from lived experience, changing mental health services, not today, but yesterday, and asking Alan why it hadn't happened yet. Maybe it was with Inaugural. Maybe it was with Head to Health. At Inaugural, I can imagine it was making sure that Professor Ian Hickey was on the right track and knew what he needed to say and what he needed to do. Standing firm on lived experience, leading and driving digital solutions. I can hear Jackie. Just tell me, who are the solutions for anyway? So who do we need to talk to? So who we got to call? Okay, we all on the same page? Maybe it was a Commonwealth Departmental Committee. There she would encourage people to respect each other, listen to each other, think big ideas, think new ideas, consider out of the square ideas. I can hear her saying, well, we could discuss why my idea can't work or why Tom's idea can't work, but how about we start with discussing how my idea or Tom's idea might work, how we can make it work. Then I can see her sending a text message to the person she met on the plane that day, asking them for advice about the technological solution she should recommend in the meeting, or getting information. Interspersed with all of those meetings, she was checking in on the world's best partner, the world's best baker, and the world's best children. She was sending text messages, at times even to a person in the same room as her. Brainstorming, telling them what to do, what to say, instructing sometimes just encouraging, or simply having a laugh, or to discuss what was for dinner. And then the next day would begin again, whenever possible, with the advice of Jim, sometimes the roses, but all the time counting down the sleeps till she was with the world's best baker again and the world's best children again. I'd like to close with the words of an Aboriginal poet, Zelda Quackerwood. A right to be heard. A right to be heard, not censored of word. A voice that is true, not a momentary view. A word that is said, it remains in our heads. Of value that's true in both me and you. It signals the start from deep in our hearts. A sentence recalls from the big to the small. It flows like a stream. I have a dream. Gary, Cass and Zach and Jim, thank you for sharing our dear friend and colleague Jackie with us. And colleagues, friends, may we all go forward and honour Jackie and her dreams and the person that she was. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leanne. I'd now just like to ask if anyone else here would like to come forward and say a few words. Patrick?
I'm Patrick Hardwick. I'm a fellow carer advocate colleague of Jackie's. We collaborated over many years, and I'm not going to say a lot because I have written a lot and I've put it in the letter to the family, so I don't want to repeat it here. But I do want to just talk about Jackie the person, not Jackie the work that she did. Just a couple of things I want to mention. Last year we were at a conference in New Zealand, and I was presenting to a large crowd on the carer guide, and when I walked in the room, to my surprise, Jackie was there. I wasn't expecting her to be there because she was facilitating my session, and that was fantastic. And at the end of the session, she said to the crowd, she said all these wonderful things about me and the work that we had done around the guide, and quite honestly, comments from her, coming from her, was very important. And it's those sort of comments that actually make people like me continue to try and do the hard things and the bigger things. Jackie liked the bigger things. And another time, I was at a conference in Perth and Jackie was there, and we were having after dinner, after conference drinks. And I was really pleased that my wife was actually there and she actually met Jackie. I'll always remember that. But while we were talking, Jackie actually said to my wife, she said, "Take care of this one, he's a treasure." And I thought, coming from Jackie, a treasure, and those two things that she did for me, you know, over the years, apart from all the other collaboration that we did together, have really affirmed the work that I do, and the fact that I've really got to keep pushing through the barrier and doing all the hard things and thinking big. And lastly, my very cherished memory of Jackie is I'm probably one of the very few advocate colleagues that actually had a dance with her. We were at a workshop and there was a dancing session, so there's Jackie and I waltzing around the room, and I'll forever remember that. So thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Anyone else? No? I might just add some reflections of my own. I have to say, the mental health sector is not an easy sector in which to work. It's very diverse, it's very complex. It's got a broad array of stakeholders, and sometimes they have competing interests to get the funding, the resources, the attention that's on offer. And our mental health system has been around for a long time. And I say that because it's seen some changes over that time, but probably not the changes that we want it to, we want to see, and certainly that Jackie wanted to see. And it remains, as we know, a very fragmented, difficult to navigate system, all too often falls short in terms of the outcomes that it achieves for mental health consumers and their families. Jackie didn't deny the need for mental health services. She spoke very openly about her own utilisation of services and about others for whom she cared and their utilisation of services. but she was very clear about wanting to bring about those changes that needed to occur, to make sure that what was offered was suitable for now, 2017, not 1917. And she wanted to ensure that any of those changes were guided and directed by those who use the services. But she was not daunted by the challenge of trying to change a crusty old system. She knew it was not an easy task, both to achieve change or indeed to be the agent of change. And she understood that to get change meant you had to get in there, into the depths of the system in a range of different ways, to question, to influence, to challenge, to remind, and in fact to demonstrate new possibilities and new ways of thinking. And many people have a desire to bring about change, but most are uncertain of how to go about it. Jackie was not one of those. She went about everything with, I think, grit and gusto, always believing that she could make a difference. And she was persistent. She wouldn't be put off because someone didn't share her point of view. She was always respectful to others, but she was also very able to eloquently and persuasively argue her position. But as I said earlier, perhaps most importantly in my view, she was absolutely incisive. She had just that ability to very quickly identify what were the important issues, to sift the wheat from the chaff, and to help others to do the same. And I know that I personally received the benefit of her insights on more than one occasion. And she also believed in supporting others. She was generous with her time and happy to share her skills and her knowledge and to mentor others. And importantly, she did all of that with good grace and a wonderful sense of humour. She enjoyed many a good laugh while going about her work, and she particularly enjoyed Alan's dad jokes. And I'm sure that helped her to keep going, as it helped many others dealing with the challenges. And I must admit that I still find it difficult to comprehend that she's not going to walk through the door of the Commission any day soon. And although our loss is great, we know that it doesn't compare to that of Gary and Cassie and Zach. Jackie was away from her family a lot during each week, as has been said, doing what she did so well. And it was because she was in such high demand from many organisations, not just the Commission. But she spoke about her home being her sanctuary and about her family being most important to her. And I have to say we had that in common, being away from home much of the working week. We also had, Jackie and I, we had children of similar ages, and indeed we both have a son called Zach. And I do remember a conversation with Jackie at an airport once about the trials and tribulation of juggling modern day life. I have to say, taking on the role of a lived experience representative is not an easy one, whether it's as a consumer or a carer, and Jackie did identify as both. As a mental health system, we want, or in fact we need, to hear the voice of lived experience. But we also need to recognise that it's a challenging gig to be the champion, and we need to do all that we can to fully support lived experience representatives. There's still much stigma and discrimination for people with lived experience, and there's overt and covert resistance to change, with many barriers still to break down. And there are undoubtedly many challenges, many disappointments, many setbacks for every gain that is made. It's not easy to effect change in the face of those deep-rooted practices and cultures that come from that old mental health service system. Jackie was probably the grand master of lived experience champions, but I know that even she struggled at times. So as a system, we need to make sure that we don't lose the ground that Jackie fought so hard for, and we need to learn from all that she taught us And I think I can say that the National Mental Health Commission is committed to doing so in Jackie's memory. Now, we're going to hand over to Lucy for the release of the butterflies. So, Lucy, over to you.
Thanks, Peggy. Before we release the butterflies, Gary, Cassie, and pass on to Zach, my love and support for you. I personally learnt so much from Jackie over the last couple of years, and it seems that we became instant friends. Well, we kind of sized each other up the first time we met and then clicked straight away. But Jackie would always ring me at 3:30 in the afternoon because she knew I'd be in the car with a carload of children, and collectively, with children and Jackie on the phone, we would solve the problems of the world. But for us, and particularly for my kids, she was amazing support this year, helping them understand the system. And for that, I'm so grateful to her, and that you could share Jackie with us. We had a little code word for ourselves that was bananas. And whenever things were going wrong, if she wasn't texting Alan to say wake up, she was texting me with the word bananas. And for us, it came from a mutual, we'd both kind of realised, and I tell this story quite often, that in a very desperate time before we engaged with the system and I was trying to work out what to do for my husband, I Googled foods high in serotonin, thinking I'll medicate him myself. The experts always roll their eyes at this story, but bananas are very high in serotonin. So our diet became based on bananas, and Jackie said, I did exactly the same thing. It was only many years after we had a staple diet of bananas that Gordon Parker actually told me you needed about 20 kilos of bananas a day to make any impact. But for us, bananas worked as a immediate pickup, or I just need a friend, give me a call. And so I'll miss that, and still have a laugh every time I think about bananas. I think of Jackie. When we were in many Qantas lounges, too many Qantas lounges, they often didn't have fresh fruit, but they'd have lolly bananas, and that was good enough for us to keep us going. So thank you, all of you, very much for sharing. Thank you for coming today. We decided that we wanted to show tangibly a way of capturing Jackie's spirit, which many people have covered today and in the last few days. So we have these beautiful butterflies that symbolise metamorphosis, transformation, and I think the evolution of life, that it just goes on and that can fly away, but the spirit is always there. So we're going to release these butterflies, and we have a butterfly for every year that Jackie served as a commissioner for us, to join her spirit, and thank you for your contribution in allowing us to have Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your attendance today, both here in person and to everyone online. I think it's been a wonderful opportunity to honour Jackie and all that she did and to celebrate her life. I would say that I think in this circumstance that Jackie's very untimely passing will undoubtedly stimulate all of us to think about our own lives and our own mortality. I trust that our reflections will centre on making the most of life and making a difference, both of which Jackie did so very well. So that concludes our proceedings. On the table outside, if you haven't already had the opportunity, there is a memory book. Please feel free to write in it your reflections of Jackie, and we'll actually give that to the family when it's completed. And then please join us for some afternoon refreshments and a drink in Jackie's honour. Thank you.